Vaping was sold as the miracle escape from cigarettes, cleaner, safer, even stylish. But beneath the cloud of fruity flavors lies a sobering truth. Studies show that over 2.5 million teens in the US vaped in 2022, a generation trading smoke for vapor, yet still shackled to nicotine. Could the safe alternative actually be rewriting our brains, lungs, and society in ways more dangerous than we imagined? Or is vaping just smoking, wearing a slick disguise? In this video, we're peeling back the vapor to uncover the reality behind e-cigarettes. Are they the salvation for smokers desperate to quit, or a cleverly repackaged addiction marketed to a younger audience? The stakes couldn't be higher. At the personal level, it's your health, memory, and even your DNA at risk. At the societal level, it's an industry worth billions shaping culture, policy, and the future of public health. Short-term, vaping may look like a lesser evil. Long-term, it could mean rising respiratory illness, addiction crises, and a public health disaster we've seen before with cigarettes. We'll explore the science, the paradoxes, and the deeper meaning, why humans keep falling for safer smoke. Spoiler, it's not just chemistry, it's psychology and profit too. And yes, sometimes the smoke and mirrors are literally flavored mango. Vaping didn't start as a youth craze, it began as a medical pitch. In 2003, Chinese pharmacist Han Lik invented the first modern e-cigarette after watching his father die of lung cancer. The promise was revolutionary: nicotine delivery without the tar, ash, and toxins of smoking. By 2010, sleek designs and flavored cartridges made vaping a global phenomenon, marketed not just as safer, but as almost futuristic. Public Health England once declared vaping 95% less harmful than smoking, a claim that went viral and fueled its adoption. By 2023, the global e-cigarette market was valued at over $22 billion, driven largely by young adults and teens. Brands offered candy-like flavors, bright packaging, and tech aesthetics. A cigarette looked old-fashioned. A vape looked like an iPhone accessory. But the science never kept up with the marketing. Researchers at Stanford University found that certain e-liquid chemicals can damage endothelial cells, the very cells that line your blood vessels, raising risks of heart disease. Meanwhile, a 2019 CDC report linked flavored vapes to the outbreak of a Valley, e-cigarette or vaping product use-associated lung injury, which hospitalized over 2,800 people in the US and killed 68. The metaphor is unsettling. If smoking was a house fire, vaping is the candle you left unattended. Smaller, yes. Safer, maybe. But under the right conditions, it still burns the house down. Even experts disagree. Some see vaping as harm reduction for lifelong smokers, a bridge to quitting. Others argue it's a gateway drug, recruiting a new generation of nicotine addicts who might never have touched a cigarette. One teenager doesn't light up because tobacco smells bad, but hand him a cotton candy-flavored vape pen, and suddenly, nicotine doesn't feel so toxic anymore. And there's the irony. A product invented to help adults quit smoking has become the starter kit for kids to begin. Dry humor line. Think of vaping as nicotine's PR makeover. Same old addiction, but now dressed in a cloud of bubblegum-scented mist. If vaping truly is too good to be true, the consequences ripple far beyond one puff. Let's play out a few scenarios. First, the optimistic one. Vaping replaces cigarettes entirely. In this world, cancer rates drop, lungs heal, and public health celebrates a victory. That's the vision some regulators hoped for, a harm reduction revolution. Picture hospital wards emptying out, and tobacco companies forced to reinvent themselves. But here's the darker flip. Vaping doesn't eliminate smoking, it multiplies addiction. A 2020 study in JAMA Pediatrics found teens who vaped were 3 times more likely to start smoking traditional cigarettes within a year. The tool designed to end smoking could instead prolong its reign, keeping nicotine entrenched in society for another generation. And then comes the paradox. Even if vaping reduces some harms, it introduces new ones. E-liquids often contain propylene glycol and glycerin, which when heated can release formaldehyde, a known carcinogen. So while the cigarette is infamous for tar, the vape may carry hidden toxins that haven't had decades to reveal their effects. Think of it like swapping arsenic for lead, different poison, same graveyard. There's also the psychological contradiction. Many young users don't see themselves as smokers at all. Because vaping lacks the stigma of tobacco, it slides under the radar. You can vape in your room, in the bathroom, even in class. The cloud dissolves, but the addiction doesn't. Critics argue that dismissing vaping's dangers is premature. We're running a global experiment without informed consent, warns Dr. Stanton Glantz, a professor of medicine at UCSF. Meanwhile, defenders claim over-regulating vaping risks pushing people back to deadly cigarettes. A surprising side effect? Culture itself is shifting. Vaping has become an identity marker. Influencers blowing rings on TikTok, products styled like high-tech gadgets. What was once a medical tool is now a lifestyle accessory. And here's the irony. Vaping may be both a lifesaver and a life trap, simultaneously reducing deaths for some while recruiting new users for the same addiction cycle. Clever humor line. Imagine fighting fire with fire, except this time, the flames come in watermelon ice. So what does the hard science actually tell us about vaping? Let's strip away the smoke, literally, and look at the chemistry. At its core, an e-cigarette heats a liquid mixture of nicotine, propylene glycol, glycerin, and flavorings. When vaporized, these compounds transform into tiny aerosol particles, small enough to penetrate deep into the lungs. A 2018 study from the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine concluded that vaping exposes users to significantly fewer toxicants than cigarettes, but still introduces harmful and potentially harmful substances. Quantitatively, it's striking. Traditional cigarettes contain over 7,000 chemicals, with at least 70 known carcinogens. Most e-liquids test in the range of hundreds, not thousands. But here's the catch. Heating these liquids can produce formaldehyde and acrolein, toxic byproducts that irritate the lungs and damage DNA. It's like replacing a bonfire with a gas stove. Cleaner, yes, but still capable of burning the house down if left unchecked. The biology backs this up. Inhaling nicotine vapor spikes adrenaline, raises blood pressure, and constricts blood vessels. Classic cardiovascular strain. Researchers at Johns Hopkins found e-cigarette users had measurable increases in volatile organic compounds in their bloodstreams, linked to heart and lung disease. Meanwhile, imaging studies show inflammation in airways of young vapors, even those who never smoked a cigarette. And let's not forget nicotine itself, one of the most addictive drugs known. Studies show vaping delivers nicotine levels comparable to, or even higher than, cigarettes. Which means dependency doesn't just survive, it thrives. If you want raw numbers, one JUUL pod contains about 59 milligrams of nicotine, roughly equivalent to an entire pack of cigarettes. In other words, a sleek USB stick hides a carton's worth of addiction. Even institutions like the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, admit the long-term risks remain unknown. We're only a decade into this global experiment, and the data isn't in yet. Absurd analogy. It's like beta testing a new operating system, except instead of software glitches, the bugs show up in your lungs. Here's where vaping becomes most paradoxical. It was designed as a tool to help people quit smoking, yet it's now accused of creating millions of new nicotine users. The very cure threatens to become its own disease. If vaping really is safer than smoking, should we celebrate it as a public health triumph? Or should we worry that by normalizing inhaling nicotine, we've simply repackaged an old addiction in a shinier box? That's the paradox. Harm reduction versus harm creation. Consider a thought experiment. Imagine two futures. In one, cigarettes vanish, replaced entirely by vaping. Cancer rates plummet, and public health hails a miracle. In the other, vaping becomes a cultural fixture, hooking teens who never would have smoked, and the next generation of lungs trade smoke scars for chemical burns. Which world do we get? The unsettling truth: we may be living both futures at once. And science doesn't resolve the tension. Some studies show vapes help adult smokers quit. Others show they act as a gateway to smoking for adolescents. Both outcomes are happening simultaneously, which makes policy and personal choice far more complicated. We also don't know what 20 years of vaping looks like. Cigarettes took decades to reveal their full devastation. Could vapes follow the same arc, with a wave of chronic illnesses emerging in the 2040s? Or will history show that this time, technology really did save us from ourselves? The counterintuition stings. The safer alternative could still shorten lives. It's like being told seatbelts save you in a crash, only to find out they might strangle you in certain accidents. This tension is what makes vaping more than a health issue. It's a philosophical one. When we step back, vaping isn't just about nicotine or lung tissue. It's about how humans wrestle with temptation, risk, and the longing for shortcuts. We crave pleasure without cost, relief without sacrifice, progress without consequences. Vaping promised exactly that, the high of nicotine without the horror of smoke. Too good to be true, perhaps. But it reflects a deeper truth about us. We are creatures who keep bargaining with danger in search of comfort. On a moral level, vaping raises questions of responsibility. Should companies be allowed to engineer flavors that lure teenagers into lifelong addiction? Should individuals bear the blame for choosing what seems safer? Or should society acknowledge that billion-dollar industries shape those choices? Philosophically, vaping is a mirror. It shows us that even when history warns us, cigarettes, asbestos, leaded gasoline, we are quick to embrace the next shiny fix. Maybe our flaw isn't ignorance, but optimism. Yet there's an empowering twist. Awareness gives us agency. If vaping is nicotine's latest disguise, then unmasking it restores choice. We don't have to repeat history blindly. A relatable metaphor? We are like ants on a processor chip, drawn to the glowing circuits without realizing the machine is indifferent to us. The patterns are dazzling, but we rarely stop to ask, who designed them and why? In the end, vaping's lesson may not be about smoke or vapor at all. It's about the human pattern of chasing illusions, and whether we'll ever learn to see through them. So what have we uncovered? That vaping, marketed as the clean break from smoking, may not be the miracle it claims to be. On one hand, it reduces exposure to many of the deadly toxins found in cigarettes. On the other, it introduces new chemicals, new risks, and a fresh wave of addiction, especially among the young. The paradox is striking. Vaping can both save lives by helping smokers quit, and endanger lives by recruiting non-smokers into dependency. It is at once harm reduction and harm creation, salvation and trap. Philosophically, it's a reminder that human progress rarely comes without shadows. Every shortcut has a hidden toll. Vaping, in this sense, is less a technological miracle and more a parable of our times. Proof that we are still drawn to illusions of safety, even when history warns us otherwise. And the open question lingers. Are we witnessing the dawn of a safer nicotine era, or the beginning of a new public health crisis that will only reveal itself decades from now? The answer may determine not just the fate of vaping, but how future generations judge our willingness to learn from the past. If this deep dive into the hidden truths of vaping challenged what you thought you knew, hit subscribe and join us as we unravel more science, health, and human paradoxes. Now we want to hear from you. Do you think vaping is a safer alternative, or just a slickly marketed illusion? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective might spark the next big debate. And if you're ready for another eye-opening journey, check out our next video on addictions that disguise themselves as solutions, pinned below.